What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. Chance and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome in everyone to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell and of course DK on the sticks in the background. We got an exciting episode for you. Obviously the Ravens go into the bye week at 5-2, coming off of probably the most disappointing loss in recent memory in the sense of how they played and the lopsidedness of that loss. But they got the bye week. They got some time to lick some wounds, get some guys back healthy. But more importantly, they got an opportunity here, at least the coaching staff in the front office does, to evaluate their roster, look around the league, see what other teams are. See what other teams and players that might be offloaded if they don't foresee a future with their current team. It could be an upgrade for the Ravens at different positions. So we're going to explore, should the Ravens look for a trade that could benefit and could help this roster and help this team get better. So that's kind of the premise of this show. So Jimmy, I'm gonna kind of kick it to you to start us off. When you first look at this team, what are the areas that you kind of identify as places they could potentially improve this roster?
Yeah, immediately my mind goes to the offensive line. I think about right tackle right away. I also think about, when we're going down the position group, I also think about running back as another one. It's crazy to say that I don't think about wide receiver. Obviously, don't think about tight end. Those two come to my mind. One on offense and one on defense as the highest needed positions. With the injury to Macari, we don't know. I mean, we've heard it's a sprained ankle, and I think he's going for evaluations and options and things like that. But really, his future and when he returns is unclear. And even with that, he's still an undrafted guy that is not a bookend right tackle, right? And then running back, we got a bunch of guys that are, as Ryan Clark said on ESPN today, his age. And so certainly getting an upgrade there would be a big one as well. Are there any that I'm missing defensively that come to mind for you?
Well, I think pass rush. There's been some fans that are saying, look, we got to improve the 4-man pass rush. We can't continue this blitz heavy scheme when you have a depleted secondary and you kind of leave guys out on an island. And when the team decides to drop back into coverage, they're having trouble getting home with just a 4-man pass rush. And we saw in the most recent Super Bowl, Tampa Bay won that game against Kansas City and really dominated that game because they were able to dominate with a 4-man pass rush and keep Pat running for his life and really collapse that pocket around him without having to send more than you can block. And typically for the Ravens, as of late, over the last couple of years, they've needed to send 5 and sometimes 6 in order to get any type of pass rush. And, that can be a tough thing to continuously ask your back end of your defense. As much as confidence we have in Marlon Humphrey, this past game, he wasn't able to hold up against Jamar Chase. And I think a lot of fans are worried that could be the case moving forward.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. I really, as far as Marlon goes, I hope that that's a fluke. But
yeah, I hope a lot of teams continue to challenge him because I got confidence in Marlon moving forward.
But like you said, beating the guys up front, without having to bring extra folks is key and would be a luxury. So I think what we should do is positionally we've talked about some folks, or we talked about some positions, but maybe we should identify some teams that we think will be sellers. So Glenn, are you convinced, as I am, that the Ravens will be buyers in this trade deadline at this point based on where we're at, or do you think we'll stand pat?
I think it's that's a good question. They're in a tough spot in the sense that they right now have a 1.5 million in cap space. Not a lot of cap space, right? Now, I mean, so if they are going to make a move, the question is, do they trade for a guy who fits under that, which could be challenging because typically teams are offloading guys in their final year of their contracts, usually their rookie deals, and they don't anticipate coming to an understanding about an extension. So the final deal of their contract, a lot of times, is the most expensive, especially if they're a top-end draft pick. So that would mean they'd have to offload some salary in that trade. That's where it makes it a little bit tougher because that means they're going to have to give up something in order to get something. But if I had to guess, I would say that the Ravens look at this AFC right now as it can be gotten. I mean, there's not that team where you look at and you go, wow, they're the team right now that looks unbeatable. I mean, you look around the AFC, the Buffalo Bills just took a loss to Tennessee Titans, and the Tennessee Titans, yeah, they look like world beaters. They just beat the Bills and then the Chiefs, and they really stomped the Chiefs. But we remember some pretty bad losses for the Tennessee Titans earlier in the season. So really, this AFC to me is up for grabs. And so the Ravens might look, let's take a chance. Let's go out there and grab this guy. He makes us better. So I would have to lean on the fact I think they're buyers.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I mean, I'm skeptical as to whether or not the Ravens being buyers and what we consider being buyers to be the same thing, in that this could be a depth move that, a guy that we don't really know. Maybe it's not somebody that makes the front page. Mm-hmm. But I do see them as buyers as well. My only caveat is this, and I would ask that all that are watching this video also consider this when they're concerned about the urgency of the Ravens needing to make moves. If they're concerned about the roster as it is today, we talked about this in our last show. There are some main guys that are coming back, right? That we presume are coming back. Nick Boyle, obviously. Sammy Watkins is another one. Derek Wolfe is another one. And then also Macari doesn't look to be out for the season. I mean, I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
But he doesn't look to be out for.
There's some more names on there too. I mean, aren't we kind of expecting Dalen Hayes to make a return at some point this year?
Exactly.
Which should help pass rush. Ben Cleveland would help on the offensive line. Chris Westry on the back end of that. There's some names that have a chance to come back and help.
Yeah, so there's definitely some reinforcements on the way. I don't think that that the reason I bring that up as a caveat is because if there's something that would keep the Ravens, even more than the cap, I think, from making a move, it would be their confidence in their own guys coming back.
Good point.
But like you say, I mean, I agree with you. I think that this is the football gods shined on the Baltimore Ravens and giving them their bye right now, because now Eric DeCosta, like you said, and the coaching staff could take a second to breathe and say, okay, what can we do before this trade deadline, right? We have a moment to think about not just our next game, but improving this roster. So the other question I want to ask before we start, talking about some names, you talked about the 1.5 or 1.25, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything that they can do to restructure or to, do some restructuring, to offload some guys, things of that nature, to clear up some space, right? Like, could they do anything inside, some of these guys with a massive hit and to make their contract even, more favorable for this year? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I mean, the only thing I can think, without just outright cutting a guy, which I don't think they even then, I don't even see an opportunity where if they cut a guy, because the dead money is so much that even that wouldn't be beneficial. The only thing I can think is some minor savings if they reach some extensions with guys who are currently approaching, the time where they would get an extension. So like I'm looking at what Hollywood's making right now. Marquis Brown, he has a $3 million cap hit. Could you influence some of that by getting him on a long-term deal? They did a lot of their maneuvering that they could do. They already did it. I mean, there's really not a lot of cap manipulation you can do, at least from what I understand. I mean, there's obviously some more cap experts out there that might be able to find something, but it's pretty tight right now, Jimbo.
Yeah. So, but with that being said, Eric DeCosta has shown that he's willing to give up players midseason. I mean, obviously gave up Kenny Young. And so certainly throwing players into the deal is not something that he's not accustomed to. And trading is just becoming more rampant and common in the NFL today. So let's get to the specifics then. Running back, and right tackle, pass rush. What teams out there, before we get into guys, what teams out there do you think? We talked about buyers. Who do you think will be sellers? Yeah. Like, to my mind, I immediately think of the Detroit Lions. Mm-hmm. I think of the Giants, but I'm going to throw one in there. Let me ask you a question. Okay. Could the Chiefs become sellers for this season?
I think it's just too early. I think they gotta. Yeah, I think for them it's too early. Not for every team, but for them, I think it's a little early.
You might say it's early, but think about this. Mm-hmm. The record isn't terrible, as bad as the other teams, but they've lost to the Ravens, they've lost to the Chargers, they've lost to the Titans,
the Bills,
And all these teams in the AFC, and I don't think
Yeah.
that in their heart of hearts they feel better than any of those teams right now.
I mean, first of all, they lost all their tiebreakers, right? So
Yeah.
that's not going to help if they want to make a wild card bid. But I can't imagine the Chiefs, with all they invested this season, becoming sellers. Look, the reason the NFL added an extra wild card and added an additional week is to keep the intrigue in as many markets as you can for as long as you can. And I think if you're a Chiefs team, if you start giving up at 3-4, I would be pretty shocked, especially when you look up above you and you see the Raiders are right now at the top of the division, all the turmoil they're going through. While they have won 2 in a row, I think you expect at some point there to be a dip, from them
Fair
losing
enough.
their coach and all that. So I would be surprised, but the Jets are obviously, if they have any decent contracts they want to get rid of, they're a team. The Dolphins.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know what's going on in Miami. That Brian Flores, I don't know how he still has a job because the guy he seems like he's getting worse as his tenure
Jacksonville,
moves
what do you
along.
think? Or do you think that where they're at in a point in time and they're in this rebuilding mode, maybe they're not ready to, start offloading some of the guys?
I don't know about Jacksonville, but the Texans absolutely have
Yeah.
have some guys that you would look to, even some former Ravens that you could look to and think they can be offloading. Do you think the Steelers are ready to pull a trigger on that?
No, I think they're never say die.
Yeah, they're one of those teams.
I don't think so. I think that defense, they believe too heavily in that defense and Ben's ability to just be merely average.
Yeah. And now what about the whole NFC East outside of the Cowboys? I mean, Washington, Philly, and New York are all sitting at 2 and 5.
Yeah.
They obviously don't. They can't be thinking they have a shot at the division, and I'd be stunned to think they even have a shot at wild card. All 3 of those teams could be looking to sell, and in fact, didn't the Eagles just offload maybe their best quarterback in the building in Joe Flacco when they traded him to the Jets after the Wilson injury? So they're obviously starting their rebuild and their breakdown of their roster.
Isn't it funny
early.
that Joe bounces back and forth, to these teams, and he gets to stay at home?
Just chilling.
Because he's, the Jets, he can drive there. Philly, he can drive there.
He's in the perfect spot. I mean, to be able to drive. But yeah,
that's a great one. That's another good one as well. I mean, I think the NFC East, any of the Easts, AFC East. I mean, a lot of teams there. Yeah. NFC East, a lot of teams there. And then the few other teams that we named. So now we have some sellers.
Okay.
Let's see if we can't get a little more granular with it and talk about some names. Now, this is the other thing I will say about right tackle. We don't think that and I always forget his name. Is it Jawan James? Jawan James. There you go. We don't think he's coming back this year, but that could be another reason why we don't make a move at that position. But so let's start with running back.
Okay. Pie
in the sky type scenario. Is there any way the Giants are offloading Saquon Barkley? Any way?
That I think that from a.
Or is that just a dream from a hopeless Ravens fan? Could you imagine Saquon in the backfield with Lamar Jackson? Even with one leg and a busted ankle, it doesn't even matter.
It would certainly be an exciting name. So the injuries, the injuries concern me a little bit, even though I think they were fluke, especially that ankle injury. I mean, we've all stepped on someone's foot and rolled an ankle if you played any sports. But I think that the Giants, to me, are a team that doesn't know how to tap when they need to, and they should have been tapped out. I mean, I don't understand the way they've been building this team. To me, has been kind of a head scratcher all throughout the last few years. Ever since Gettleman's been there, I've been kind of scratching my head. So I'm not sold on the fact that they're going to give up on him, because then how do they sell tickets? Because their product is trash. So at least you can maybe have a name out there that sells. But some running backs that might be on the move. I mean, Marlon Mack has already requested a trade. It's been well known. They have an obvious stud at running back leading the way, and then Naheem Hines is one of the best third down backs and pass catching backs in football. So Marlon Mack seems to be kind of a guy without a home, and he's been good when he's gotten the ball this year, even though it's been in relatively small increments here. What's your thoughts on Marlon Mack?
I would love to have him in the backfield. I think it would be great, and if there's an opportunity for him to be here more than just this year, you talk about an upgrade to Justice Hill. Bye-bye. I mean, goodness gracious. Could you imagine Mac, Dobbins, and Gus back there? Now, I'm not saying that will happen. That opportunity will present itself, but if it did, that would be awesome. But for this year, I think that's an ideal fit and a necessity. So urgency and desire, they converge. His desire to leave and the Ravens' urgency to upgrade the position could be interesting. I like that one. Now let me throw another one back at you. He's a guard, so I realize that there's redundancy there. But geez whiz, now I'm forgetting his name. Is it oh, let me look it up. The Giants guard, the nasty one. What's his name? Dang it, I like him.
While you look at him, I'm going to throw a name out there, sticking in the running back room, unless you have it here ready. But if we stick with the running back, what about Melvin Gordon? He's playing for the Broncos right now, a team that is just nose diving into irrelevancy, and their coach is on his way out the door. But most importantly, they have a fantastic rookie running back who's been going absolutely bonkers this year every time he gets the ball. And that's Melvin Gordon. I mean, Melvin Gordon needs to be look. He's got Javonte Williams just chomping at the bit to take over this job. He's a second round pick. He's been phenomenal every time we see him. He had the angry run where, if Ravens fans remember, he was towing guys. Marlon Humphrey got drug about 10 yards.
He knows him well.
Absolutely. So if they want to hand the reins over, the best way to do so is you get rid of the vet who's ahead of him, who's more highly paid, and who's taking a lot of his carries. And Melvin Gordon has been really, really good. I mean, he's averaging 4.5 yards a carry. That team is going nowhere and nowhere fast. Maybe Melvin Gordon is looking elsewhere and wants to prove himself on a team that's actually ready to compete, and rather than a team that looks like they're in the beginnings of a rebuild.
Yeah, I like it. I like that one a lot as well. Let's stay in the running because now I'm feeling inspired. The names are starting to come to my brain here. So there's a guy that you loved come out of the draft that plays right down the 495.
Who's that?
In Gibson.
Oh yeah, Gibson.
And so, Antonio Gibson is there. If I'm not mistaken, they still have McKissick, right? And so they do have some relative depth there in the backfield. They're going they have to be either in quarterback purgatory or go all in on a rebuild, right? So do you think that they're selling, and do you think that he would be a guy that's on the table? I mean, he would be an awesome fit here. His pass catching ability, he can do it all. He's a home run hitter. The guy is a fantasy. I mean, he's ridiculous because he's such a his game is so multifaceted that he can make plays in so many ways. Any way they offload him,
I'd be shocked if they offload him, only because he's a relatively cheap player right now, and he puts out, he's a good value for them. He's not highly paid at all. And do
you have any interest in a guy like McKissick? Is he an upgrade? I mean, he had a good year last year. And he's certainly a great pass catching threat. And to be honest, not like our running backs are, they're not pulling the truck up the hill.
No.
So do you think that there's any interest there? Because they do have some redundancy in the way Gibson and McKissick play.
No doubt. I think that they need to get rid of McKissick and turn the reins over to Antonio Gibson. But the problem is, I don't really think McKissick fits the scheme. We don't throw it to the running back a ton. And if I remember correctly, and this is off the top of my head, so I could be wrong, I believe McKissick had over 100 catches last year as a running back.
Yeah, he took me to the championship round in our fantasy league.
He would not, in my opinion, really fit what the Ravens want to do here. I think we just don't throw it to the running back enough to make him being traded for really make much sense. And I think we need an in between the tackles type guy.
And let me throw one other one at you here, and this still might be pie in the sky type stuff. They're not on our list of sellers, and they're in win now mode. But is there any desire for Tony Pollard to get out from underneath Zeke Elliott?
I think that's an interesting one if they were out of it, but they're too good right now, and to risk it. I mean, if Zeke were to go down, they would lean on Tony.
But if we could give them something that they need, I'm just saying.
I mean, I don't know what we could give them that they don't already feel pretty good about in house. I mean, they're what, 5-1 right now, leading by far in their division. I don't think that's I don't think that's a move that I don't see why they would want to make that move and then risk the fact that if Zeke were to go down who they got. I think right now they like their two-headed monster, and they can beat you through the air, or they can beat you up on the ground. But switching positions a little bit, I want to talk about offensive line. I'm worried about the Macari injury. I think the Macari injury is a similar one to to Stanley, and that they're going to see if they can find a doctor who's going to say, yeah, rehab and rest might help. But I think it's a surgery waiting to happen, and then he's gone for the year. I'm
Don't
really,
tell
really
me that,
concerned.
Glenn.
I
Don't
know.
tell
I'm
me
really
that,
concerned. But
man.
remember, I said the same thing about Stanley, and look where we're at. It's kind of kicking the
So
can
what you're
down the
saying is you're the
road.
kiss of death.
No,
Great.
no, look, he
That's
was
what
hurt
you're saying.
before I brought him up. I'm just saying that
Perfect.
the writing's on the wall that I think we're going to lose Makari for the rest of the season, and they need to address the tackle position. The Philadelphia Eagles look like an absolute disaster right now. They need to offload some guys, and they got Andre Dillard right now, who's really a swing tackle for them. They expected him. He's a former first-round pick who they thought would eventually emerge as their left tackle, but they found a guy in Malata, I think is his name, Jordan Malata.
Malata, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's obviously going to be their left tackle of the future. And so they could keep Dillard around and be a swing tackle, or they could look to move him, at least get something out of it before he becomes a free agent in 2023. I think he would be an awesome player to put in at right guard or right tackle and be an immediate upgrade from what looks to be Tyree Phillips going forward.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you there, but I was really pretty frustrated. Eric DeCosta, he didn't take my phone call in the 7th round when we should have taken Jordan Mailata. I saw that one a mile away. I mean, the guy's just a freak athlete. You know, he just decided to hit the ignore button and it didn't work out. But
you made your bed, EDC. Now you got to lay in it.
You got to lay in it, man. Jeez. But no, I think that's a great one, Glenn. I think that they're certainly going to be sellers. Like you said, they seem to be a dumpster fire. So we'll see what happens there. We obviously are familiar with them and have done business with them in the past. So yeah, I like it. I like it. The only thing that's tough for me is like the last time we made a significant trade like this, of course, the move to get Marcus Peters always comes to mind, right? So I want a guy that's like Marcus Peters impact, mid-season impact like that. And that's why I forgot his name, and I realize he plays guard, but he's a really good player, in my opinion. That's Will Hernandez from the Giants. And look, he's a guard, but he's better than Tyree Phillips at tackle already. Not saying that he would be there, but we have a question mark at left guard.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Powers is not the answer, and we don't know if Ben Cleveland is the answer. So, there could be an opportunity to just simply upgrade the offensive line, regardless of position. Upgrade it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm trying to think of names that could be on the move that are teams that are sellers. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think the Niners are sellers at this point? Or do you know what I mean? Because I feel like they're kind of in this weird spot as well.
They got to be, dude. They're 2-4. They're dead last in a division that has an undefeated Cardinals team at 7-0 and a Rams team at 6-1 that looks like they could be competing. They got to be sellers. And you talk about a team who's loaded in the front seven of their defense and could certainly part with a pass rusher if the Ravens call them. That's a team you could look and see. The Ravens may target. There's hopefully some sort of relationship maybe with the Harbaugh connection. I don't know if maybe the bridges were burned on Jim's way out. But
with Bulky and everything. Wasn't that?
Well, Bulky's been gone. But yeah, maybe the ownership. I don't know. But I'm thinking the Niners have to be in sell mode. And look, they need to recoup some draft capital. They gave up a lot to go get Trey Lance. They gave up 3 ones, if I remember correctly. They need a lot. So I look around and I.
Speaking of a running back.
What's that?
I'm saying he looks a little bit like a running back right now.
Who's that?
Trey Lance.
Oh, yeah. Well, he definitely needs some time. He needs some time to sit behind a quarterback and learn.
Hot take, Aaron Rodgers will be a Niner next year. Hot take. You heard it here first. Trey Lance will sit another year. Aaron Rodgers will be a Niner.
Will he be a Brown?
He will be a Niner.
I could see him being
That was his team. That was his preferred team. He wants to go home.
Okay. All right. I could see that too.
Anyway, sorry. I didn't mean to throw you off your inspiration there.
No, that makes sense. But yeah, I think, look, it's hard to identify players when you're just talking hypothetical. But
yeah,
I would not be shocked at all to see the Ravens make a move, but I also wouldn't be shocked at all to see him stand pat because they have so many guys that are looking to return in the near future that I think it gives them some hope. I mean, you talk about the pass rush that they could be getting from Dalen Hayes coming back. You talk about the defensive help they could be getting in the secondary if Chris Tree's able to come back. I don't really know exactly his current injury stats. We haven't heard an update from him, but On the defensive front, we talk about how we've been getting gashed, even big plays on the ground. Derek Wolfe, I think, is going to be a huge addition to the interior of that defense. And then on the guard, you're not sold on Ben Powers, and I'm not either. And we're not necessarily sold on Ben Cleveland yet, but he is expected to come back at some point. So if the Ravens, when they come out of the bye, they have 3 winnable games back to back to back. If they can withstand that and come out of those games with wins, we should have Nick Boyle back at that time, should have Derek Wolfe back at that time, hopefully have Dalen Hayes and Ben Cleveland and maybe Chris Westry, and we'll see what happens there. But the only way they make a trade, Jimmy, is if they offload a current player with a decent salary that can offset the incoming salary.
Yeah, and DK has been dying for the Ravens to get rid of Brandon Williams at this point, who seems to be not having too much of an impact these days. And Broderick Washington has come on in limited capacity and played well. Jelly gets no push to me, while Brandon Williams might not make a ton of plays. Brandon Williams does get push, in my opinion, at least in resetting line of scrimmage in comparison to Jelly, where he's more of just a roadblock.
Mm-hmm.
But Broderick Washington, I could certainly see being a guy that they could lean on. Meta DK is still pleading his case here. But they are different players.
Mm-hmm.
I think that actually Wolfe will be, if Wolfe comes back healthy, he would be the closest thing to duplicating what the responsibilities of Brandon Williams would be. Because certainly I don't think Meta BK can eat 2 blockers for an entire game.
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, I don't think he'll ever get there. The same way that Brandon Williams does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, but either way, that could be a name that could be offloaded. There are some other names out there as well. But
it's just crazy, man. You look at IR, Jimmy, we have over $39 million in this year's cap space sitting on IR.
Man, it's a tough one. It's a real tough one, but you know what? We're going to get through it. Right.
Yeah.
Never say die. And we'll certainly see what happens. But if you had to bet right now, this is how we'll end. Ravens make a deal, don't make a deal. DK, put your thoughts in the bottom. Make a deal, don't make a deal. Glenn, what do you think?
I'm going to say they make a deal, but it's not a deal that's as splashy and sexy as Marcus Peters. Yeah, I think it's more of a depth guy, or maybe a guy who's a bit off the radar, like an Andre Dillard type.
Yeah.
But look, I'd be thrilled if they go out and get a guy that has some name recognition, brings some proven, a bit of a proven commodity rather than a guy that they're banking on potential. Is what I would hope for. But if I had to put my money on it, it's probably more of a depth guy and more of an unknown guy.
DK?
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I understand what you're saying, Glenn. If they do make a deal, I agree with you that it's not even going to, half the people aren't even going to know who the person is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that they don't make a deal this year. And because to me, it's either got to be one that gets the job done and makes a difference this year, or it might as well depend on the commodities we got and the health of these guys coming back. So it's really going to be interesting. I think the Ravens are making calls. They're wheeling and dealing, as Eric DeCosta always does. Let us know what your thoughts are, guys. And make sure to hit the subscribe button, sub to the channel. We appreciate all your support. If you want to stay up with your Ravens news, hit the subscribe button, and then also turn on your notification. Leave all your comments below as always, and we'll be sure to get back to you, and we'll talk soon.
See you.